Paul's tired already.
Yes. Been building this deck out back.
A big one, I hope, Paul, a big one.
What's that?
A big one, I hope.
Yeah, well, I'm adding on to we got a 10-footer. We're putting 8 feet on it. So it's
Oh, great.
Nice.
18 by 26. So it should be nice.
Mike is making it. I texted Mike just to check to see if he's coming. He is.
He's signing on right now.
Okay, perfect.
I just admitted him to the room and we are live on YouTube. So Dan, whenever you want to start, you are good.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, I'm going to call the North Stonington Board of Finance meeting to order. The date being March 31st, 2001. Please note that this is a special meeting, so we stick only to agenda items. So again, we welcome everybody this evening. Present is myself, Dan Spring, Chair, Paul Simon, Dan Smith, Carolyn Howell, Ann Aiken, Mike Anderson. As alternates, we have Sarah Nelson and Brett Mastriani. The time currently is 7:04. We can move to the next agenda item, public comments, if there should be any.
Nita?
Anita wants to be recognized.
Yes. What I wanted to recognize you about is that when you get home tomorrow night, you should have the North Stonington Quarterly in your mailbox. I hope it doesn't get wet at all. And there's quite a bit in here about the budget. And on the back page, which is something we really want, I don't know if they can see it or not, but, and this is what's going to happen next Monday for the chance of doing this special town meeting at the Wheeler School Gymatorium, okay, on 6 o'clock. And hopefully everybody will come. And this quarterly has a lot of stuff in here this time, so I hope you'll read it. Thank you.
Okay, we have a hand up from Joe Gross. Joe, go ahead and unmute yourself.
This is how we ended the last meeting, I thought.
Yeah.
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted now. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, God. I'm going to speak at the beginning of the meeting because during the marathon, I can't, I'm half asleep. You guys talk during the marathon meetings. Imagine it's like not be able to say anything. My first request is I want to reinstall the first selectman salary as it was in line item B100 to $64,948. Also, additional 2% increase for line items B1000102. First, second, and third selectmen get a 2% raise like everybody else. It took many years to get where we are, and the position being a full-time now we're reassigning our duties to the administrative financial officer and the planning and zoning officer. We need to get that back to the full-time selectmen and allow them to do their duties as assigned. My second one, which is the most important one too here, I think, is the mill rates after each revaluation year, starting with 1968. 7 years, not one board has been able, had that year following increased. Every year following was an increase, not a decrease. I'm sorry, I got you mixed up. We have never decreased our mill rate after a reevaluation year. It's always increased. And that I got from the from Darrell, his run through. Starting in 1970, we've been able to keep the same as it's been. Now, when I go through there and you take the 6-year terms of boards, I'm talking you're talking 8 boards. 8 individual boards starting with 1968 has never been able to change that. Have a reevaluation and drop the mill rate. It's always gone up. What I like to do too, I mentioned I go from 2014 through 2022. The mill rates that the assessor tells me were in each of them years versus the mill rates, which is in the handouts and the distribution of the each year's town meetings. There's a difference in what the mill rates were. What they do show though is, starting with 2018 and that, we had a loan 4,444,510, and then after that it was up to 888,000. for that. But when you go to the mill rates, they haven't changed since 2018. What that is now, when we're going in this year, if I'm wrong, is $1,067,765. And what I think the board is trying to do is squeeze a 32 mil rate into a 29 mil rate. And the way we're doing it is taking away our general government. I'm asking you to stop taking away from our general government. Realize that 3 mil rate for that school, which everybody knows has to be paid. But if you look at it in generality, it's 32 mils this year, but we're talking with the 29 mil. And every year that we've had that, we haven't gone up. So we've just got to stop taking away from our general government and face reality. If you take the mill rate there and have 1 million something and look what the actual charges have been through the budgets throughout the years, like I am, gentlemen, we're just killing ourselves. We got to stop. We're never going to make it up. That's a 3 mil rate. Everybody recognizes that we've got to make up since 2016. Now's the time to pay for it. We got a beautiful buildings. We got great schools over there. We got to pay for it now, though. And I don't know how you can get that 3 mil rate into the existing 29. It's impossible. But I hope the heck you do it. Thank you for listening to me at the beginning, though.
Thank you, Joe. As always, we appreciate your contribution. I'll say at the end of last meeting, we recognized you, but you were unmuted. So I'm sorry that we didn't get to talk at the end of our last meeting.
That was my fault. I talked to Chris about it and just make sure I do unmute myself. It's not you people, it's me. Total ignorance when it gets into computers and stuff. But I thank you. Please, just take what I say into consideration and give it thought. And what I got is I got all the documents here. I can give them to you tomorrow, whatever you want, to back up exactly what I said. Thank you again, guys. And let's not have a marathon meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Any more public, Christine?
If any other public have a comment, please raise your hand. No, I think we're good.
Okay. So moving on to agenda item number 3, correspondence. I have a couple of pieces. One, and you may have as well received a letter from the chairman of the Board of Trustees for the Volunteer Fire Company, talking about a couple of things. One, maintaining the 1 staff per diem in the budget, which I think we have some agreement on. The other is the request for the 2nd staff, which we have not moved forward with the thought that the American Rescue Package might provide some accommodation. In the letter, they also requested some type of letter or memo to that effect from the Board of Finance. However, I would have to say that we, to this point in time, have not received any specific guidance relative to the use of those funds. So it's hard for me to bring a statement from the members of the Board of Finance without knowing how those assets, when they do arrive, are to be used. So the third is, he also made comment that the fire chief in our last meeting was not recognized in order to bring any salient data to the table relative to their budget request. And I certainly could see that on the montage, he was present, but I never saw his hand raised to be recognized. And unfortunately, that's the only way that I have via Zoom to say, hey, if you'd like to speak to us, let us know that you would want to be recognized. So it's not just me saying it. I'd like to have a comment relative to that from the host. Christine Diaz does the monitoring as I do as well to try to dialogue going.
As we went through, I do keep an eye to see if anybody puts a hand up. I know we don't take general public comment, but there was no hand raised from the chief while we were having the conversation. If he had raised his hand, we would have acknowledged that he had a hand up and then recognized him to speak.
If I could make a point of order on this, so it's certainly up to you how you want to run your meetings, Dan. But generally, if I'm here as a first selectman, I can speak at any meeting as an ex officio member of every board, which I often don't. But in this case, if you're going to have comment from other departments, that probably should be acknowledged, say on an agenda of some sort, because there could be the perception that, well, why didn't, I get knowledge that I would be able to come and defend a budget. Generally speaking, this falls under the general government umbrella. And I think that was your point last week anyway, Dan. So I just wanted to make that point that, however you want to do it, I would just suggest caution and thoughtfulness, how you're going to proceed with something like that.
I think the only tag to that, and the obviousness of the length of our meetings lends itself to the fact that we try to give a voice to everyone, and certainly we're not trying to bias or prejudice the interaction in any way whatsoever. So, any other public?
Carolyn has a hand up.
Okay, Carolyn, yes.
So I just wanted to clarify that at the last meeting, I did make a point of acknowledging that the fire chief was on the call and that perhaps we should let him speak. And I only think it's fair that it be offered, since we have no problem with people from the Board of Ed speaking. For example, Peter Nero comes on and speaks, and he's allowed to speak, even though Christine Wagner is representing the Board of Ed. So I would think that whatever you do for one, it should be done for all going forward. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Well, I think I've already said that, Carolyn, and as a Board of Finance member, you're seeing what's going on, that everyone is being recognized. So, and it's almost a free-for-all at times, which, I let run a little bit, but certainly I would like to hear from anyone who could make a contribution relative to the agenda items at hand. So, and again, I reiterate, don't even imagine that there's some kind of bias or prejudice. That would be an affrontment. So let's move on. Any other public comments?
No.
Okay. Agenda item number 4, the big one of the evening. We've gone through a couple of sessions of budget review. I'm pretty sure everyone has a sense of familiarity with the numbers. And it comes down to, okay, have budgets been presented that we feel comfortable with, which would potentially lead to a mill rate that is higher than we had suggested to be target, but meeting the needs of the town. The big pieces there, of course, being debt redemption of the 0.3 and the repatriation of monies we used from the unassigned last year to mitigate taxation, which is coming in at a 0.8. So just those two pieces alone would put us at a 1.1 mil increase over the adjusted mill based on the grand list at 27.4. So it would put us at the 28.5 mil. So that's kind of really the base or starting point. And I think as we went through the discussion and the increases that have been asked by both by general government and Board of Ed would put us roughly at a 29.2 or 29.3, I think is what the calculation was. So so let's start there. We had a lengthy discussion about what should stay in, what should come out, and whether or not we feel comfortable enough with the budgets that have been presented to take them to a public hearing. or that we should look at our base of the 28.5, give or take, and where do we go from there? So let's start the deliberation. Mike Anderson has his hand up. Mike, you're recognized.
Thank you. I want us to take Joe Gross's comment at the beginning to heart. We've already, I just want to clarify some things he said. We've already paid for, with the mill rate increases, for what the school is going to cost us, other than the last 0.3 that were included in this fiscal year. So it's not like we have another 3 mills to add that we're just not doing. So I just wanted that to be clarified. But to his point, we are in essence trying to squeeze a 31 mill rate budget into a 29, below a 29. What is our present? 29.2?
29.5 is our present.
Okay, they're trying to squeeze it into a 29, mill budget. And we did last year as a group decide to give the taxpayers a break because of the situation that we're in with using the unassigned. So that 0.8, we either got to bite the bullet and keep that in, and the mill rate goes up. I mean, the mill rate, I hate to say the mill rate goes up. There's an increase. There's an increase in over last year's budget. And that I obviously want us to try to maintain a lower mill rate than the 29.5, to perhaps be the first Board of Finance, obviously, to do it, if Joe's correct in his search of the history. But I'm also not. I don't think we need to be stripping ourselves in our general government, and our school, and our and particularly with regard to capital improvements that we have a committee for, to try to decimate this budget. I just don't think we need to do that when, it should be expected that 0.8 should be back in at some point. I did come up with a potential revenue gap filler scenario if we wanted to do it over time. And maybe Christine, if you could put that up on the screen.
Yep.
So can everyone see that?
Yes.
So in this scenario, we have 57,165 coming in from out of district tuition. Right now, that money is being allocated elsewhere within the budget. So you kind of have to just think theoretically here for me. So let's say we as a board say we want to make sure that if we're going to get this 0.8 back into revenue somehow without burdening the taxpayers too much, we could do it over a 4-year period where the 57,165 that's coming in as revenue this year is, in our way of thinking, going towards that 0.8. The taxpayers are going to have to contribute $162,835, which is a point, I think it's a somewhere in maybe a 0.3. And then the undesignated, we take 220,000 from the undesignated fund again this year. And then next year, as we get another 5 students, all that money goes towards filling that gap. And the taxpayers' contributions done, undesignated fund, we have to use 105,670, and so on as the chart goes. And then in year 4, basically the tuition, the district tuition is going to cover that gap. Now, the little notes there is obviously, in year 4, there's going to be more revenue than we need. So there'll be a surplus there to go towards something else. And if we have more students, obviously that would stay in revenue. And for this year, we'd either have to find 57,165 worth of cuts in the budget right now, so we could use that tuition towards this plan, or the taxpayers absorb another 0.1 mil increase. So I just brought that out for discussion, for a way to maybe think about closing at least half of the gap, not on the taxpayers' back. Or not necessarily half, but a majority of it.
Any comment? Unfortunately, I can't see the display of participants with that up.
You have a hand up from Paul, a hand up from Brett, and then Mike's hand still up.
I'm done.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I appreciate you kind of thinking about this and what might be something that could be workable. Paul Simon, you're recognized.
Thank you. I guess my hand was up before Mike put this up, so I think there are some fine assumptions there about students that are coming in, but I think we've kind of worked that into the revenue plan already this year. But you are looking at another $400,000 over 3 years' time coming out of the undesignated. So, it's certainly a thought. That wasn't why my hand was up. I might go to a related but slightly different topic. Is how about what might be the unpopular idea of a temporary suspension of the RISA account? Are there tens or $100,000 that would normally go into that account this year that we can put back into offset the spending increases by the Board of Ed and general government? I know it's not popular, but like Mike has said many times, it's raining. So if there are monies there that would be put into the RISA account, especially in a year like this where there's going to be a $500,000 windfall from the American Rescue Plan, could there be some shifting of funds to help townspeople? I'm sorry, the screen still has Mike's display up. I can't see any people.
Are you guys okay if I stop the screen share?
Yeah,
Yes.
for the moment. Yep.
I can always pull it back up. So
Yes, right. Yeah, take it down.
It was just an idea I had. I mean, I was thinking of the same thing Mike is, where can we find some monies? Now, again, I don't know what would go into that RISA account this year. I'm talking about a temporary suspension while we weather this storm.
Okay.
Won't be a popular one, but certainly.
Probably let's keep it to Mike's idea first, and then certainly we're going to address the lapsing account. So Brett, let's stay to Mike Anderson's thought first, so it doesn't go ping pong here. So.
Sure.
Okay, I had some comments as well outside of Mike's presentation there, but I would say that what worries me, I like the thinking about it, but what worries me is the future budget. So we're almost assuming that there wouldn't be budget increases in the following years, and that tuition wouldn't be used for that purpose to help fund the future budgets. I do want to just bring it back to Joe Gross's and Mike's comment about the 3%. I'd like it to be on the record that at the last meeting, I did bring up that the only reason we're not at 3% or a 3 mil increase was because we switched from 20 to 30 years. and I was told that that was incorrect, but I did forward you guys all the presentation, the town presentation from 2016 to show you that that's how it was presented. And that's where the 3 mil increase was coming from. But so using that as an analogy, we're not there yet. We didn't raise it 3 mil. I think it's a moot point. But Mike, my question is, as you came up with this plan, did you think about the future year budgets and how that would play into your calculations?
Yes, I did. I mean, basically, that revenue stream, the potential revenue stream for these kids are going to go into the revenue side and be used for the budget. I mean, I don't think they're going to be, they're not designated for the Board of Education. They're not designated for anybody at this point. I'm just looking at a way to say, in our planning, just like we did with the school project, we knew that we wanted to go, you know, the first year we added $1 million. We said, we got to have that in here, and we don't want to shock the taxpayers with at the time, a 3 mil increase all at once. We're going to incrementally put it in. So, and that's what we did as a board over a 3 or 4 year period. You had one, then we added a half, and then we found out we could add another quarter, and we did it as the project went through, and we knew that we weren't going to need that. We didn't overdo it. So we have the ability to plan things like this, to say,
it's
all right,
30.
This is a revenue stream that, rather than let it come into our revenue side and go just wherever, in future budgets, we have to make sure, we just have to be cognizant of the fact that we're going to take any of that additional revenue and a minimum of, the 5 students, and apply it towards filling this revenue gap. And because hopefully this year, a lot of that money that we took out last year or budgeted for last year doesn't actually come out of the general, the undesignated fund. You're not hitting that undesignated fund in actuality seriously. It's for budget purposes. Yes, we are budgeting 220 this year to come from undesignated, but next year when the actuals come out, who knows whether or not that money is ever going to be used. So this plan is just a guidebook for us to say, next year, to fill this gap, we're using 114,000 of whatever tuition we have towards filling that hole, versus taking that 114,000 and making the taxpayers pay it.
You all set, Mike, for the moment?
I am.
Okay. I have 2 comments relative to what's been presented so far. One, Mike, on your hypothetical. I mean, we're using the assumption that the 5 that are coming in bring brothers, sisters, cousins, or friends. So there's an assumption there. So it would be us assuming that we're going to get more money from the state, or we're going to get more money from economic development. I think we've got something more tangible than that, but it's still assumptions. The other, relative to the RISA account that Paul brought up, if my memory serves me well, the use of the RISA account has been part of their presented budget to us.
So those dollars have been spent.
Yeah. So we'll go to Ann Aiken next, please.
I just have 2 comments. The first one is there's also a 0.17 mil budget deficit from this year that we have to keep in mind. that I didn't hear mentioned earlier. The other thing is, I think we put ourselves at risk the longer we stretch covering the budget deficit, because looking at the February profit loss statement, I see that we are still $700,000 short of predicted tax collections. And in the situation we are in currently, I don't see that improving, at least not this year, and probably not next year. So I would caution closing the budget deficit gap we have, because I only see it growing. And that's all I've got to say.
All right. It's a good point. I know as we presented the tax report in the last couple of meetings, it was showing a collection of 94.5%. And maybe Christine Diaz could just give us an update so it's salient to Ann's comment.
When I looked at the, not reviewed, not cross-checked report today, for all of A1 as a section for tax collection, we were at 96. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we are above 96% in collection. So we are well past what we had budgeted in past taxes. We were 86,000 over in past year. We don't separate out the current year and the supplemental motor vehicle until the end of the year, just because it's done as one process to pull those two numbers apart. But in that line, it was 97 something percent. So I personally do think that we are trending in a positive way for the collections. As we said at the last meeting, we have signed on with a new collections agency for the motor vehicle and personal property. So I have confidence in them to collect. It's about 500,000 that we're going to be placing with them for taxes and fees. So I wouldn't plan on a shortfall.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. I mean, I think that adds to a very relevant point here. Brett, we'll come to you.
Yeah, I would worry a little bit about the tax collection rate, as Ann said, especially now that as of today, we're without a tax collector. I think that could cause some delay in the process. But I also think that maybe we should have Daryl look into some of the appraisals that have gone down by double digits. I did go and speak with him and asked him if there was a process. I know people can challenge their increases, but nobody looks at the decreases. So we have people that are challenging their increases, but as a town, we never go and look at those bigger decreases. And he said they only does that if there's direction by one of the boards, Selectmen, Board of Finance, whatever, to look at that. And that might be something that we can try to do in a short-term basis and try to look at some of those that have gone down double digits to make sure our revenues are in check. And to Paul's point, I disagree with trying to hold the risk account off for 1 year. This was their first year, obviously last year with that account, and the challenges in education going forward, as we'll find out at the start of next year, where we are with our kids in our school. I would think that would be one place that we wouldn't want to put our children at risk and our residents at risk of not providing for the school at that point next year, by taking away what they are planning on already with that. I understand the American the CARES, the relief fund will help with that, but that's until 2024. So they have to spread that out just like the town will on their side. So taking away their account now, we're just putting a Band-Aid to try to make this budget look better without actually diving into this budget and trying to figure out a solution. Thank you. I yield.
All right. Carolyn, will come to you, then Ann. Brett, if you, there you go.
I just wanted to, I mean, I like part of Mike's idea of not having to penalize the taxpayers. I still think that we should wait for the rescue fund guidance from the Treasury Department so that we know where this money can be used and how it can be used, so that we can make good choices and decisions based on facts. Also, you know, I still think that we need to look back at what we've spent over the year. Maybe we can go to each department and ask them, you know, what do you think you might be giving back this year? I just think, you know, to be optimistic about a collection agency, I'm just going to say you can't get blood from a stone. So if people don't have the money, they don't have the money. So I don't think you can count on that, regardless if you know, put them in collections or harm their credit or put them, you know, in litigation with the town. I just don't see that's the answer. I think when people are struggling, we need to find a way to come together and help everybody. I mean, we are all in this together and it has to work for everybody. I don't think that we should be, you know, pulling back the ERISA account only for the fact that we have to rebuild the trust, whether it's with them or the fire company. When you tell somebody you're going to do something, they need to take us at our word, and we need to find a way to make it work. And to Ann's point, there is still the money that we have to worry about coming up with to pay for the property at 298 Norwich Westerly Road that's already been spent. So there's all of these things that come into play, and I don't see that there should be a big rush to send this to the town. I think that we should do our best to come up with a solution that's going to work for everybody, and not everybody's going to be happy, but at least if we've done our best to make it work for all parties involved, I think that's where we need to be.
A couple of points, Carolyn, to your contribution. One, and Christine Diaz can affirm this, we've had great success using collection agencies in terms of collecting dollars. And yes, and it's unfortunate that any one individual or family has to be put into collections, but in terms of the revenue coming to the town, collection agencies have worked. And the other, you know, we talk about the circumstances at hand, and rather than kind of reviewing that over and over, I'd like to hear solutions.
I'll give you a solution. I brought it up to Mr. Carlson. We have this program that we've used at my office called Papaya, where people can make payments on their bills, and other municipalities use it, where you send your bill in, you can make a partial payment, and whoever's at the town hall gets the report, and then they process the payment. And, you know, it's just working with people, meeting them where they're at. If they can't pay their bill in full, then what can they pay? And maybe if they could pay part of their bill, they would pay part of their bill. But when they're forced to pay all or nothing, you're going to get nothing when they're having to choose between food and medication and things like that. I mean, that's what you need to remember when we're looking at this.
Heretofore, and you may not be familiar, but the tax collector has been willing to set up time payments with individuals with specific circumstances. So in terms of tax collection, you know, that service has been provided.
Well, and I understand that, but I'm talking about maybe the convenience where if you don't have time away from work and you need to make a payment with a debit card or credit card and you can't come into the office, do you know what I mean? All I'm talking about is making it available for however they need to make their payment. You know, if they need to pay cash, is someone there at a time when they can come in and pay cash? If somebody has a checking account, you know, and is there a way to make a payment online with the check where they don't have to pay an exorbitant fee and they don't have to pay it in full? And I don't think we're meeting those needs where they are. You know, I think it really needs to be taken into consideration, because I think if you were able to work with people better in regards to how to receive the payments that they can make and want to make, we'd be in a better situation. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Again, relative to the tax collection, people have been able to use credit cards over the system. I mean, to your point, and the other relative to what you're saying, Caroline, we have to consider that, okay, we have to continue the payments out of the town for salaries, for services, pay vendors. And I don't think many of them are going to say, can you willing to accept things kind of piecemeal. So, I mean, there's two sides to your argument.
And again, there's also been a lot of wasteful spending. So I think if people are comfortable with where the money's going, they might be more likely to come forward and pay in a more timely manner.
When you say wasteful spending, Caroline, I think you should be careful and be specific about what you're saying.
Okay, the first selectman buying an Apple Watch was very wasteful, and I think inconsiderate to the taxpayer. And that's just one thing. So, I don't know. I've requested additional information. I was told last night at our FOI training that everything that I have asked for is public information, and basically validated all of my requests. So had we received the information that I've been trying to get for over a year now, we might not have had to waste all of these hours going over and over things. I mean, we might have already had the answers that could help us get past where we are today. So I'm going to yield now.
Well, part of what you're saying, Caroline, it starts with, okay, what is the allocation to these departments? Have they been justified? And is the Board of Finance willing to accept their justification for the allocations? So that's another piece, as opposed to looking at each single transaction in a department, for instance. It starts with, are we justifying what they're asking for? So, Sarah, I'm going to recognize you, then Brett.
Yeah, I had a comment, but I wanted to clarify something first with Christine. So when you reference the current taxes collected so far this year, was your point when Dan asked you the question that is normal for this time of year, or above or below? I didn't quite understand.
I didn't pull the last year's report and compare year to date, but to me it seemed on track.
Okay.
So I can take a little bit more time tomorrow to look, and I can send you all an email. But to me, nothing was a red flag.
Oh,
I'll put it that way.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Christine. So I think I do want to address Paul's comment, and I think, Caroline, you sort of said it, like we need to do what we say we're going to do. I do think it is dangerous to take away a budgeting tool that was provided, because the Board of Ed would have been, in theory, making decisions based on that RESA account, and to suddenly sort of remove that right at the end of the budget creation cycle. I just think I just would be very, very concerned about that. The school is bringing in revenue. I would caution that we are not penny wise, pound foolish, and that we are really protecting that future revenue and ensuring that the school has what it needs, to be able to grow, both for our children and for the taxpayers that we're bringing that revenue in for. I did like Mike's presentation. I do feel that I've lobbied for this. That it is not kicking the can down the road to make a strategic decision I don't believe that you guys were kicking the can down the road last year when you chose to address the revenue gap the way that you did. When somebody has a lot of debt and they decide they want to pay it all off, they don't do it without paying for their food and their electricity and their shelter. they make sure that they have a plan that's consistent in how they go ahead and address that debt. And this is, for all intents and purposes, is a revenue gap, but it's a debt that we have to solve for. And you know, we will either solve for it by causing a lot of pain right now, where we're removing services that we should be able to pay for as a town, or we can spread it out. There'll be a little pain this year, a little pain next year, and we do what Caroline said, which is do what we say we're going to do. You know, we have to agree that this is the plan, this is the process, this is what we do. So I just think we're not, unless somebody magically in the budget Christine sent over found all the money that we were worried about last week in those incremental cuts. I think we need to strategically look at the bigger picture here. What's right for the schools? What's right for the taxpayers? I mean, I'm very concerned that we didn't, you know, find a way to address the fireman or the firefighter per diem, because you know, when you pay your taxes, you expect a few things. You expect to educate the children of the town, like we were all educated and taken care of on somebody else's back. You expect to have police, you expect to have fire and emergency services, and you expect to have general government that's going to function. Like that's what a taxpayer expects when they pay their taxes. So if we just cleave this budget apart to save a couple mils, I just don't think we're doing our job. I yield.
Okay, so I mean, Sarah's point, I think, suggests that the budgets have been looked at deliberately and with diligence and should move forward to a public hearing. I think that's what I'm hearing from you. Is that right, Sarah?
Yeah, yes, you got that out of my soapbox. Good summation.
Okay. As we talk about these things, don't be afraid to bring it to a point to say, this is where my stand is, because I think then we're able to start to build consensus and move this forward as we have the responsibility to do. Paul, I'm going to recognize you next because Brett has spoke a couple times, then Brett.
No, thank you, Dan. And again, to go back to my unpopular comment, and I knew it would be, was if there were givebacks available that would go into the RISA account this year, could that go back in to offset increases in spending? I heard that it was already spent. That ship has sailed. So I understand. And Sarah, I do think that we have looked at budgets over the years and made strategic decisions by taking from our undesignated. And we did that knowing that that is indeed kicking the can down the road. But I think I'm on board. I mean, we're looking at this 1.8 mil increase from the new adjusted 27.4 thereabouts. And I think, Dan, I'm with you. That's where we are. We have to pay these bills. I think we pay them this year. We bite the bullet, and we'll see what the town thinks about it. I think we've talked about it for weeks now and many, many hours. I think now is the time to bring it forward and let the taxpayer tell us if we're doing the right thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And the positive to that, Paul, is I think as taxpayers make their thoughts known,
Right.
that we have the opportunity to respond.
We do.
And I think that's appreciated.
Yeah. No, I think that's where I'm sitting right now, Dan. Thank you.
And so again, to bring it to a point, I hear Paul saying that his thought is move the budgets forward to a public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And just a refresh to where we were last year, there was a point where we were even willing to take more from the unassigned. And if you recall my contribution at that point, I said, we at least have to put a half mil in there because otherwise the hole is too deep and that we will feel the consequence. So that's kind of where we're at. And we did a good thing. And so it doesn't mean that because we're now in a position to do a repay, that we're doing a bad thing. I don't know how to say it more simply. Brett, you're next.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree 95% with what Sarah said. All her comments were spot on. My question though is, are we acting prematurely by, if we were to move it forward tonight to get feedback from the public without knowing the results of a referendum on Monday? Because we all talked about how we thought the radios were important. Some of us talked about the software. If that gets voted down on Monday, does that mean those are off the table? We're not even considering them for budget purposes. I do think the relief fund will cover some of that stuff, but we don't know that yet. So my question was, should we wait until we know the outcome of that referendum on Monday and where we stand with those items that some of us thought were important, some of us didn't, but they were a need for the fire department before moving this forward? And then I'll leave with my second thing is I'd like some feedback on my last comment regarding looking at those reevaluation numbers and the ones that decreased by at least double digits to make sure we're not missing some revenue there that we can have that will help solve some of this issue.
If I may, to that point, I'll talk to Daryl about it and see what the magnitude of that might be. Because, you know, that data I haven't seen. And again, this reval was done in COVID, and, you know, it's hard for me to say, okay, was it absolutely the way it should be? Because most of this was drive-by. I mean, you know, they didn't have the opportunity to go into the homes and look at this and look at that. And but that's what we live with, and every town in this cycle has had to live with that. You know, to that point. I think relative to the town meeting on the appropriations, the answer will be had. You know, it would be just like a budget brought forward. The appropriations, you know, will be heard by the townspeople, and the justification, they'll either say yes or no. And if they're off the table, they're off the table. So I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense to wait. What we want to get to is an answer. So. Dan Smith, Mike, you're actually next, but you know, just to kind of get everybody.
Dan was before me anyway.
Okay, so I had forgive me, sometimes my head's down because of notes. So Dan Smith, you're going to be recognized.
Oh, thank you. So I kind of like the proposal by Mike about shifting over 4 years. It's definitely out of the box thought of it. I can easily come up with $50,000 of cuts to make that. I'm actually up to close to 80 or 90. But some of the, you know, I was focusing in on, like, over the past week over on the capital side, and a lot of it, you know, with the rescue act that is coming out, it has to be for unplanned expenditures. And if we keep it in the budget, we probably won't get reimbursed for it. So if we're looking at out of the box thinking on some of the stuff, like going 4 years on paying stuff back and everything, would we even entertain the idea of taking a lot of the capital out and seeing if we could pay it with, you know, especially the one-time buy stuff, you know, like the truck, you know, $60,000 there, or pay 1 year's worth of the lease agreement out of it, or, you know, the turnout gear, or the plan of conservation and development, or the 750 farmhouse repairs. You know, maybe we can do some that creative accounting of just kind of moving some stuff excuse me, move some stuff around, the flight and mapping for $6,500. I think if we could pare down some of that, yes, it's small cuts, but you know, you can get up to $75,000 pretty easy, and then it kind of fills the hole in. I'm worried that we're gonna put this budget forward, and the $500,000+ is gonna come in, and we're not gonna have anything to spend it on except for 298 Norwich Wesley Road and the per diem firefighter, maybe, unless it gets put into the budget. And you know, I don't want to be put in a position that we're going to be sitting there wondering, oh man, it would be really, really nice to be able to put this money to good use, but we already allocated it into little pigeonholes. So, you know, Dan, what is your opinion on that?
First, relative to what you're talking about, give me the solution piece that you believe should be considered.
Have we thought about taking out all the capital that we're going to be spending for this year and then waiting for the Rescue Act and have it paid through the Rescue Act? That cuts out $75,000 right there, easy.
All right, the truck, you said 60,000, but in clarity.
Well, if we buy the truck outright, or we pay 1 year of the lease agreement, one or the other.
Well, 1 year of the lease agreement would be 20,000.
Yeah.
And in terms of a truck, I mean, if I think I'm hearing you correct, I mean, either wait to put it in the budget or have it looked at as an appropriation. I mean, it's something that's not going to be paid for by the relief package.
You don't know that, neither do I. We don't know. We don't know how any of this money is going to be able to be spent.
Okay, so to that, in order to bring solutions, you have to budget for what you think you need and should have, as opposed to, gee, maybe there's going to be something that's fall from the sky that'll take care of this. We have to work with what we know now.
We don't. That's the thing. We're going to get, I'm telling you, Dan, we're going to get to a point where we're going to be sitting here in May and June when we finally get Treasury direction, and we're going to be saying, wow, it would have been really, really nice to put, you know, $75,000 worth of this stuff on there, and we're going to be sitting there and we're not going to be able to spend a dime.
Well,
and we're going to leave $500,000 on the table.
I would hate to think that would happen, Dan. I mean, in totality.
Or you know what? I like the other people. I like Paul's talk. You know what? Put the budget forward. Let's hear what the town has to say about it. And when they come back and they say it's too high, oh well, I yield.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I think what you're saying is, unless we do a kind of a slice and dice again, let's move it to the public and see what the public is going to mandate, and then you have your answer.
I'm talking about being strategic with the money that we're getting from the Recovery Act and making sure that we're not pigeonholing ourselves into something where we won't be able to spend the money.
Yeah.
If we have one-time buys, which it sounds like this money is for one-time buys for the town, the truck would be a one-time buy. The firefighter for a 3-year term, that's been thrown around, it was a one-time buy. Financing 298 Norwich Wesley Road is going to be an ongoing thing, but if we can get 1 or 2 years of tax relief on it, that would help. Because right now we have $100,000 put in for covering bills on that building. Unforeseen bills.
Right. I think Mike, maybe we need a little more clarity on the relief package. I don't know if Mike Urgo has anything more, if Mike is still on. And
I'm on, yeah. Dan, I agree with you on a lot of what you're saying, actually. And we actually had some further information today. I had a meeting yesterday with Joe Courtney's office on some additional community funding that's going to be available through earmarks. Now, again, to Dan Spring's point, there's no guarantee on anything. However, I So when you talk about the rescue money, so I definitely disagree that we will, there's going to be no question we will be able to find money to spend. I mean, if you add up just the per diem for 3 years and 298 bills, all of a sudden you're not far away from spending all that money just right there. But the fact is, then there's this other money that's becoming available potentially through these earmarks, that we might be able to apply for things that are outside of the American Rescue money. So I didn't see the truck as something that would be reimbursable through the rescue funds based on what I understand that they would be usable for. However, I do see the possibility of the truck being used through this community earmarks that are coming out. We're actually having a special meeting tomorrow night to kind of talk about this. So I would side with you, Dan, on the removal of the truck based on this new information that I have. I'm only one member of my board, but it's your decision, so I don't mind saying it out loud, because you guys can decide what to do. And I also would agree with you that you should remove, and I've already said this, the 298 money. I think that we may be able to get that reimbursement. And you know, in my opinion, what if we have to go back to the people and ask for an appropriation even next year? I mean, we don't know right now. It's not like we're not being transparent about it. We don't know if it's in a budget. It's less likely we'd get reimbursement on it. So I think those are two places right now that you could look to. And I would just say that some of the other items that you're talking about in capital removing, I don't favor that, only because we're going to have to go through a process to get reimbursement on this money. And we don't have some of the information that might allow us to get reimbursement. For instance, when you talk about the POCD money, like that's, we don't have like invoices related to that, or some way that we would be able to get reimbursement for that at this time. So we have to look to things. Well, what realistically can we get reimbursement for? And I mean, it is planful that we do need to put that money away, because we do know that our POCD is going to cost us money. So I think there's certain strategic things that could be considered. And I think you hit them in your comments, Dan Smith, with regards to the 298 funds and the truck. I think those are two places that I would not be opposed to.
Mike Urgo, relative to what you've just had to say, and because we're talking about general government's budget, was there anything else that came to mind relative to the potential of being satisfied with the relief package besides the truck and 298?
There wasn't anything that came to my mind immediately. I mean, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow. If I were in your chair, I would consider those items, and then I would consider sending it to a hearing there. I think, to your point, Dan, there's going to be a hearing that takes place in 2 weeks or whenever. I think the hearing, we planned it for the 19th or the 20th. If we have more information, the Board of Finance then could make additional adjustments, but I don't think there's anything else that came to my mind. Christine, if I'm missing something, because we had a meeting today to kind of discuss this, feel free to jump in, but I don't think there is anything else that I would recommend.
No, there's nothing else that we had talked about.
Okay, so let's put it to the Board of Finance members. I mean, would you feel comfortable taking those two items out of the general government with the thought that there's probability of them being funded by the relief package? And if you'd like, I can poll you. That would be easy. Just talking about these two items. So Dan Smith, would you take them out?
I would like to take them out.
Okay, Paul Simon.
Yeah, if the selectmen don't think they're necessary, we can get reimbursed.
All right.
I have no problem taking them out.
Carolyn.
I guess if everyone thinks you should take it out, I still think the public should be well aware of those expenses and that they're there. So if it's not something that's going to be covered, that it is something that we are going to have to pay for.
So is that a yes or a no? We lost you. We can't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anne?
I would say yes on the truck, but I would not take all of 298 out.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you in as a half.
2/3.
Mike Anderson? And again, this is a poll, so, where are you on that, Mike Anderson?
I'm all for it.
Okay, and
Let's take advantage of that thing as much as we possibly can.
I would be as well. So in majority here on the poll, not a motion, we're going to strip out 100,000 for 298 and 20,000 on the truck lease.
Dan, I know I'm not a voting member. Is it okay if I say something?
Of course, always, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I sort of agreed with Anne that I do think I agree with the truck. Do you think you should consider keeping something in for the 298 building on the off chance that it's problematic? If it's like, 50,000 or something. Just my opinion.
And
I think with also the possibility of it hasn't played out on the time continuum lease, general government can come forward with an appropriation that still would have to go to a town hearing.
I think if you leave a portion of the money in for 298, then you can't say it's unbudgeted.
And that's another solid point.
That's a good point. Okay.
Dan, I just want to say, I agree with Ann. I think something should be left in there. I mean, we're talking about utilities for that building, and you're playing with fire with that building. We already got burned last year, and we have to deal with that revenue shortfall and that expense. But if you're looking at things like taking out, you could take out some of the extra for the library, because looking over the brief stuff that Mike sent regarding the money tomorrow, nonprofits are eligible for some of this funding as well. So some of that money could come out of there, and that's we've doubled that money since the last time the town got to vote. So there are a few things to look at, but I think going down to nothing on 298, we're just setting ourselves up for disaster, and we're not being responsible to the residents of town. And no offense, but Mike's not going to be here next year to have to deal with this mess. I yield.
Mike Anderson.
Yeah, I think Brett, I mean, I don't disagree with the fact that, it'd be nice to have something budgeted in there, but if we're gonna go for a relief package to pay for it, and to Christine's point, you can't claim that it's unbudgeted. If it's budgeted, then, we take it out completely. And, again, we have other means to be able to come back and take care of these bills should that become necessary. And we also, in 2 weeks, if we have a hearing and the taxpayers are screaming at us because they want that money in there, then we'll have to listen to that. But right now, we're going to try to take advantage of the relief package money as much as we can, and do the prudent thing now, take it out. And if we have to put it back in, we have to put it back in following that hearing.
But Mike, we don't know if that's really the accurate information at this point. We really don't. We're just hearing that, and we're assuming. We've assumed many things in the past that didn't come through to fruition. So I was just being conservative and saying, hey, why are we, well, first of all, why then are we pushing to get this to a town hearing and a vote without knowing the specifics on that package yet? I mean, technically, we don't even have to even think about a hearing until the 1st of May, if you look at what normal town schedules are. but I caution saying, pretending we know what's coming in this package, and then it could be totally different. I didn't read anywhere that it says it has to be unbudgeted. I haven't seen that documented anywhere that it's an unbudgeted expense. They talk about revenue shortfalls, they talk about many other things, but I haven't seen anywhere where it talks about unbudgeted.
Brett, I just want to point out our ordinance says that our annual town meeting is the first Monday of May. So that's why the schedule has the hearing as April 19th.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about, if you look at the handbook for the Connecticut Boards of Finance, May 1st is where they talk about the hearing.
Right, but our ordinance says that our town meeting is the first Monday of May.
And the other, to Brett's point, I mean, a public hearing still gives us the opportunity to have that dialogue, that deliberation. So, I mean, it's not a sense that this is a final draft. You know, it's going to a public hearing, and that's the value of the public hearing, is to present where we're at and what the public's input would be. So.
And don't forget, excuse me, real quick, Dan, if something happens at this town meeting next week with regard to the software and whatever, that could be part of the discussion at that hearing as well.
Sure, of course. Yep. Again, I think you all came up about the same time. So Ann, I'm going to take you first, then Paul, then Sarah.
All right, if you want to zero out 298 Norwich Westerly Road, can we take 50,000, 75,000 and put it in Public Works, where a lot of that money is coming out of right now?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Would that be, so I don't know this at all. It's just a question because I've heard the term used. Would that be considered like supplanting a budget, like doing that on purpose? Is that okay? Because I like the way you're thinking, Anne.
Well, part of the expense of that building is the snow plowing, the grounds maintenance, repairs, painting, etc., which is all under the Public Works, correct?
Why don't we, Mike Ergo, you want to weigh in on that? I mean,
so yeah, I mean, that's not,
yeah,
that's not entirely accurate. And like, yes and no. With like the grounds and stuff, the school, you know, under their arrangement is really paying for most of the grounds work. But yes, the plowing, that's true. I don't disagree with your thinking. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. You know, I think the key is that whatever we do, or whatever you decide to do, we just explain it to the people. I mean, and that's what we'll do. I mean, we'll explain, you know, the thinking behind why we did it. And you're right, there'll be a hearing. And if people don't like our thinking, they can simply tell us that we don't like your thinking and to do something else. And that's why it's great that we have hearings. But I think that, yes, Public Works is probably not a bad place to put it if you want to keep some funds allocated for this, you know, this building. I think that's not a bad way to think about doing
it. Christine, Christine Diaz, in terms of the expenditures, and I know that they had the 6-month report. You know, you see the numbers in terms of utilities versus upkeep. And what's your thought relative to what we've just discussed?
I don't know. I kind of agree with what Sarah said about, you know, you're just kind of moving things rather than. I mean, the pure utilities on the building, I think, are about. I'd have to pull up my reports, but I think it's about 120,000, and then the rest of it is the maintenance. I'll pull that up as we're talking on my laptop or on my computer at the office and see.
We'll come back to you then on that question. And We'll go to Paul Simon next.
Thank you. If we're operating under the likelihood that we could get reimbursed if the line item was not in the budget, and if for some reason it comes to fruition that we don't get the monies, are we really any worse off? I mean, we're still going to have to pay it. We still have an appropriation. So why don't we just take it out of the budget, knowing that we're going to pay these bills somehow? If we can pay for it from the relief plan, fantastic. If not, we're no worse off than we have to put it back in the budget in 2 months from now. So I guess I'm not sure what the apprehension is to zero out that line item instead of getting creative with this shell game with monies.
I agree with you, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
I have agreement to that as well.
Except it comes out of the undesignated fund if it.
It's already tax money.
So it's not
yeah,
in.
it's a one-time expenditure. I can almost see that. I mean, that just paying the monies you already spent. I can almost see that's where maybe it should come out of. But I think we kind of hedge our bets. Hope we can. President Biden is going to pay for it for us, and if not, we're really no worse off. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, Carolyn, you're next, then Dan Smith.
I'm just going to agree with Paul that I don't think that we should be moving money around in an effort to hide it. I think that things should be as they are so that people know where the money is and where it's being spent. And, then you would truly know, how to budget properly instead of having things move back and forth all the time. It's very confusing and I don't think it serves us well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're all set? Thank you. Dan Smith?
Yeah, so basically, everybody's kind of seemingly most on the same page of going and maybe putting these expenditures for a couple of months. We have, like Paul was saying, we have to pay these bills anyways. It's either going to be out of the undesignated fund, which is already taxed money, so it's not on the taxpayer. It's already been collected, or it's going to be used to the rescue plan. And right now it's kind of worth the gamble to do that. We can cut out 100,000, 120, and probably close to $160,000 out of the capital budget right now if we do that. But I think what we need to do is when we present this at the hearing is be very, very clear on what the plan is. Like Sarah was saying before, we just have to make sure we're clearly defining this plan going forward of this is what we plan on doing. We are either going to have to pay these bills later on through the undesignated fund through an appropriation, or we're hoping to have some other revenue source pay for it either through the rescue plan or one of the ones that Mike was talking about. So I yield.
Okay. Ann, I'll come back to you, and then Sarah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not take my hand down. I have nothing to say.
Bad. Okay.
I did the same thing. Sorry.
I did have my hand up.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sarah.
So
Sarah.
I'll be brief. I agree with Paul. I think I don't know I don't remember how the budget was presented. I think there's a PowerPoint slide deck that you do, but I think we should be very clear what was taken out and why it was taken out and what the plan is if it's not covered, by the rescue plan, that, we'll address it in an appropriation at a later time and it won't impact you in terms of like an increase. So as long as we're very clear, and again, we do what we say we're going to do next budget cycle, I think that's great.
All right, good. Thank you, Sarah. Mike Anderson, you're recognized.
Sorry, I had to make sure my daughter turned her TV down. Marvel. So I just want to, I'm in agreement that we take them out. We don't try to do a shell game. If we have to pay for it, we have to pay for it. And I just want to go over the numbers, Dan, so we're all on the same page. That removing 120,000 to me, that was That's about 0.21. Christine, can you verify that?
I,
The bit-
Can we validate the line item numbers that we would remove, just so we're all looking
yeah,
at the.
so it's removing from B 22.06, $100,000. And then removing from capital line
C1.19.
C1.19, $20,000. So your new total for expenditures for the budget would be 20,000, that'd be nice, $21,185,008. And as Mike asked me to do the other calculation, I was just about to change things in my mill rate calculation sheet. So give me a minute so I can give you that number.
That total number again, I'm sorry. 21 million.
21,185,008. Which is a total increase of 2.08%.
And were you doing the mill?
I'm working on that now, yes.
Oh, okay, because I was going to jump to my calculator, but if you've got it.
Dan, I would like it if you would also jump to your calculator so we can double check each other.
I got 29.11.
So I am at 29.2 with 41,780 going back into the undesignated fund. When you go to 29.1, you still need $14,419.
Okay, that's why I'm at 11. And
Exactly.
so round up to 29.2
Yeah. that
with
was-
how much going back?
41,780.
Okay.
The way we sell that, it's still 0.3 down from the present mill rate. Boom,
That's-
did it.
That's not really honest, right? So it's an increase of 1.8 mils is what it is, right?
No, we got more
That's-
money.
That's what we got.
got more money.
That's what we
got
gotta
more
sell.
money.
That's what we gotta sell. We're increasing taxes by 1.8 mils. And again, I think we gotta ask the townspeople, it's time. This is it. It's painful, but it's time to pay the piper. I think we've done a lot of work here.
I agree. And my proposal and you know, that was if we get denied, you know, that's just one potential solution that we have. I would like to just, you know, we allowed that 1 year reprieve, but it's, I mean, it was always there and we have to put it back.
Yeah, we have to. And if we keep taking money at undesignated, it's gonna keep being there. I mean, the school's always gonna need a couple percent increase. They're gonna need $250,000 a year. Bringing in 50, you're not gonna offset that. So we're always gonna be losing ground.
Yeah.
But I think it's time now to let the townsfolk tell us.
As we did the quarterlies, you know, in terms of communicating to the townspeople, I mean, I did the narrative last year as to taking money from the unassigned and explaining that. I mean, so maybe they don't understand that, and, you know, I'd be the first one to be at the mic to,
Right.
this is what happened, and this is why it happened.
Yeah.
And I think we all would have to say the next fiscal year should be a better year for all that we're seeing at this point in terms of stimulus packages, vaccinations, all of that. It's got to be better than the year we're coming out of.
Has to.
Has to.
Thank you.
All right. Boy, again, I had my head down, but Brett, I'll go to you first.
All right, I just want to say, just like you mentioned about we shouldn't predict future revenue from the schools, I think we have to be careful predicting that these expenses are going to be paid, and especially if they're known expenses, not putting them in the budget. I do worry about that. And if we are sending this forward, if you're sending this forward, usually when you send the budget forward from a Board of Finance, it's the recommended budget that the Board of Finance thinks should move forward. It's not usually just to get feedback and then go for changes. That's what these meetings are usually for, to get feedback during public comments, things like that. Yeah, do you adjust it after that hearing? But when you send it to that hearing, you're sending it saying, this is our recommended budget from the Board of Finance. And if that's what you guys vote to do, I agree with Sarah 100%. We need to be 100% clear of what the potential changes could be and the impact to either the unassigned fund or taxes in the future. And I think, and it hasn't been said, that you also need to address that we're going to have some kind of appropriation for the 298 at some point in the next few months. That is coming. And if we leave that out of this, I think we're going to confuse so many people during this process. So if it does move forward tonight with this as your Board of Finance's recommended budget to the town, I think we need to be clear on the 298 moving forward and our past expenditures with it. So the town is very clear. And of course, as much as Dan, you put it out there, people will still come back later on and say, oh, I didn't know that. That does happen, obviously, but I do think we have to just make it a point to hit those points. Thanks.
Yeah, Brett, to that, I think it would be put out there very clearly and well-defined. And I think that, we're at a point where we, in terms of our responsibilities, can't continue to say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. It has to be a solution that moves forward.
It's
Another opportunity for amendment. And I think that's our responsibility, as opposed to wait. I don't know. So, Dan Smith and then Ann.
Yeah, a couple of things, Dan. On those two removals that we are doing for the truck and Norwich Wesley Road, do we have to vote on that? Or can we just remove it? I believe we have to vote, correct?
We did a poll. I'm happy we can do it as a motion. So if you want to present the motion, fine.
Yeah, I'd like to put a motion, and then I have something else to say after the motion, though.
Okay, and your motion?
I'd like to make a motion. Let me get to that sheet. What's the line item for Norwich Wesley Road?
B22.16.
06.
Should be 06. Thank you.
6, and the truck is C1.
C1.19.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to zero out B22.06 and C1.19.
Is there a second to Dan's motion?
I'd second that, Dan.
All right, so Paul
Yes.
Simon is the second. I'd like to say we've had plenty of discussion on this.
Yes.
So I'd like to move the motion to a vote. Dan Smith,
Yay.
Paul Simon,
Aye.
Carolyn
Yay.
Howell. Okay. Ann Aiken,
Yay,
that was a yay, Ann?
yes,
Okay. I couldn't put nay and yay and kind of a half, so, all right. Mike
Yes.
and myself, yes. So that motion passes 6-0-0. So those amendments will be reflected in the budget of the general government.
So the second part of my my little rant here, like everybody was saying, we have to be very, very upfront if we're going to put forward this budget to a town hearing. I would even make the motion right now to put it forth to a town hearing, but we need to have some conditions on it. It can't be, You know, obviously, me personally, I think there needs to be more cuts. I think we need to have a better plan. I think we need to have the Norwich Wesley Road School, 298 Norwich Wesley School appropriation be a part of that motion, and what we plan on doing as a part of that. We can't just say, you know, as holistically as a Board of Finance, this is the budget, like Brett was saying, this is the budget, this is the best one we can come up with, and let them go with it. I think we need to have that as a part of it, as a condition. I don't know what my other board members feel like talking about on that, but that's how I feel about it. I yield.
All right, thank you. All right, we've had a lot of deliberation. Are we willing to put forward the budget now as it stands to a public hearing? And is somebody willing to put forward that motion?
Are we gonna put the motion forward, Dan, with the, not with the stated mill rate, just that we're voting to send?
Yeah, the mill rate is not reflected, right?
Right. So I would make that motion. I make the motion to move the North Stonington proposed budget forward to be a town vote or town meeting, I guess it would be.
Town hearing.
Public
Town hearing, town hearing.
Okay, Paul.
I'd second that.
All right, thank you, Mike. To your motion, just to help you out there, Paul, we have to be specific relative to the dollar amounts in each of those slots, and Christine Diaz can help us with that.
Okay, so it's a general government operating budget of $5,178,341.
Yeah.
A redemption of debt for $1,382,949.
Yep.
Education in the amount of $14,371,465.
Yep.
And capital in the amount of $252,253. For a total of $21,185,008. So 008.
Okay, so, and that would be an increase of what?
An increase of 432,247, which is 2.08%. Yes, Mike, thank you.
2.08, yeah, that's what we talked about, yeah.
An increase of
432,247.
Okay, can you repeat all those numbers, Dan, or is that on the record?
I've got it.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ann. You were quick. I was going to say, let's see if Ann's got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
I
Ann.
can share my screen for a minute if that helps. Do you need it, Ann?
No, I've got it.
All right.
I might mention that, I'm sorry, the motion probably should include the date and time that you plan to hold the hearing as well.
Yeah, so I mean, if I don't have Nita's schedule, but I think it was April 19th would be the public hearing.
April 19th.
To a public hearing dated April 19th. And the time we had for that is at 6 or 7.
6. Is that what I saw?
I don't know that we put a time.
We didn't put a time.
Usually they're at, in the past, they've been at 6, but it doesn't mean we can't make it 7, so,
I like 6.
okay.
I think this is a good, I think you're gonna have a lot of comments.
Yeah, give it time, yeah, 6 would be good.
Yeah.
So that's the motion, and it's just an add-on is whether this should be Zoom or a hybrid. Or there could be some physical presence.
I'd like to comment on that, Dan.
Yeah, please. But it has to be part of what we're doing here. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could just comment on, so we are obviously doing a hybrid meeting Monday night. I will tell you, I've been on multiple calls this week, and there is serious concern about the uptick in cases right now. and the likelihood that we're going to see a more serious uptick in the coming weeks. It's kind of migrating from southern Connecticut to eastern Connecticut. With that being said, there is no vote necessary at the hearing, so I would suggest that you do a virtual hearing. I don't see a reason to have to do in person since there's no voting that's necessary, and it seems that it would be easier. And given the fact that we had a pretty incredible turnout virtually last year, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, for those who don't remember, we had nearly 100 participants, which again, still is a small segment of the total population. But at meetings that I've been involved with over the years, if we got 70 or 80 people, that's what we got.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in discussion. Carolyn?
I think that the people should be given a choice whether they want to come in person or not. I don't think we should be limiting access. A lot of people have been vaccinated and they've been vaccinated twice. So hopefully they feel more comfortable being in public, and certainly we can, if they want to take the chance and come in public, they can. A lot of the older people don't have the technology, which is a big concern about our meeting, Monday night, because I was going to sign myself up so that my family could vote, but then there's only one device allowed per person, which makes it problematic, because strategically, my mother-in-law doesn't live in my house and she doesn't have technology. So, and there's no, I don't know that she's going to go to the gymatorium at night. So I don't think we should be excluding the public. I think they've been excluded long enough. And I don't want to personally repeat what happened last year. I think the people need to be heard, however they want to be heard. And we need to hear it. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
I think if we were to do a hybrid, to Carolyn's point, and Carolyn, you have to understand that we're giving people a choice. Again, it's not going to be great for everyone. I think there are quite a number of people still out there willing to say, I'm not safe being out in the public. So
yeah, and that's all well and fine, but for the people that do feel that they are safe, or they feel comfortable enough, or they feel that it's important enough to show up, that they will. So thank you.
I would just like to comment on the fact that with regards to that, Carolyn, I understand that perspective. However, we also have other people, and I'll say staff specifically, who have no choice but to participate, even if they are high risk and haven't gotten vaccinated. And I count myself in that situation where, it's not a comfortable situation for certain people. I see no harm in having this be virtually, and the governor's orders specifically allow it, and encourage this kind of thing. And especially if we're looking at April 19th and the information that I was provided today, I'm making that recommendation in the chair in which I sit, based on the information that I'm getting with regards to the trend of the virus.
all right, and thank you, Mike. We're in discussion. Mike Henderson first, then Brett.
Mike has more information on this than we do. I would be for giving people the option. I know the trend it's high, but I think a lot of those numbers are from people. What I heard today was ages 19 to 29. And those kids aren't coming to our meeting. But if it involves putting, our government workers in harm's way, then, that might sway me back the other way. Sorry, I'm a little wishy-washy on this, but I'd like to give people the option. I yield.
Okay, Brett.
Yeah, I agree with Mike and Carolyn. I think we owe it to the public to have a hybrid meeting. They didn't get a vote. We did have a hearing last year, but they didn't get to vote. And not having a hybrid meeting and the option for some of the older population in our town, which is a good majority of the population when you look at our demographics, not to have the opportunity to come in and listen to the budget and give us feedback like we're all asking. We're voting, you guys are voting to put it forward so you can get feedback and maybe change it after. Not giving that population the choice to come and give us that feedback, I think we're making a mistake. And then we send it to a referendum, and that could be a totally different outcome because those people didn't get to come and speak and listen. And I've talked to quite a few residents, longtime residents of the town that don't go to meetings because they can't stay on the phone that long. They don't use the computers, or they don't use Zoom, and they're waiting for the public meetings to open back up again so they can attend. I think we'd be doing a disservice to our residents by not doing a hybrid and letting them make that choice. Thank you.
Ann, you're next.
Yes, I agree with everything said so far that it should be a hybrid meeting. But my question is, Dan Smith had a caveat that he wanted to put on the motion, and I would like to hear and understand what that was.
I think what he was saying was that he wanted to, well, I think Dan, you can weigh in, but I think what he was saying, he wanted the public to know that expenses on 298 would go forward as an appropriation.
Yeah, I think we need to be very, very clear on Norwich Wesley Road, 298 Norwich Wesley Road, that some of the stuff is going to be going through as appropriation. I think the Board of Finance needs to be very, very clear on that. And other items, we can say, hey, you know, also the pickup truck could be also another appropriation. It's already taxed. It's either we have, I think people need to realize that we have a pot of money out there for the Board of Ed and general government. And I think they need to be educated on the plan on how we're going to use that money. The Board of Ed is over control of the other funds, but I think we need to have a plan going into this meeting and making sure it's a clear and concise plan. Don't make it complicated. Be very clear and concise. Say, hey, we can do this. We can do the per diem firefighter with, you know, for 3 years with this money. We can lay out, we have some time between now and April 19th to clearly lay that out.
All right, I had misunderstood. I thought you wanted that put on the referendum as a separate item.
I don't know. Can we even do that on the referendum?
You're talking about the vote on moving the budget forward? Is that what
No,
you're talking about?
I'm talking about the public hearing notice.
So the public hearing notice is just a notice for the hearing. It's not the vote that'll happen after the annual town meeting.
Right.
Then, but I think for the record, I think as Board of Finance, before me to vote for this budget to go to a hearing, I would want that caveat as a commitment for all of us that we're going to clearly and concisely tell the townspeople that we are in this predicament.
Isn't that just our presentation?
Yeah, it's not part of the motion of
Right.
approving the budget moving forward, but most certainly would be part of the presentation, Dan. No-
That's the way I would see that,
about
yeah.
Yeah. Sarah, I'm sorry, Dan, are you all set?
All I know is last year, each one of us talked about, you know, we were put in a predicament. We voted for a budget because nobody could go out and actually vote for to put forth and set the mill rate. Every single one of us sat there and said, I don't support this, but I'm going to vote for it to do the good. And I'm going to do the same thing when we vote to put this for a hearing.
I'm not sure what that means, but we'll get to the vote. So, Ann?
It's very clear, Dan. We have to commit that we are going to clearly and concisely state that we're going to go and talk about 298 Norwich Wesley Road to the townspeople.
Yeah, I think to your point, one of the actions that has happened tonight is that we had a motion to pull those two things from the budget. So we would have to discuss what our action was. It's already in the minutes. and will be part of the presentation, that we thought, in fact, these should be considered. And if it's something that moves forward, and we don't, again, it comes back to the relief package, we don't know what that provides. It would mean an appropriation, particularly on 298, absolutely. So I'm in agreement with your thought, totally. Are you all set, Dan?
Yes, my hand's down.
Sarah?
Yeah, I just have two quick questions, sort of unrelated to each other. So one, how does the presentation get developed? Do you do that, Dan?
I do.
Okay.
And it is shared with the Board of Finance members before it's presented. And
Okay.
I work with Christine as well, let's be sure this is, we don't dumb it down, but we try to make it simple so it's understandable, with the comparative of last year to future year.
Okay. And we'll have a call out slide that addresses what we
Yeah,
just talked about.
we do it in the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just mean you'd have a slide in the PowerPoint specifically where you're calling out why we didn't put in certain things of the budget.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. The other question is, if we do the hybrid, do we all need to be there?
You present an interesting question, in going to a hybrid, you're willing to say, okay, for those who want to be there, they can be there. So, I would leave the choice to the Board of Finance members individually.
Okay.
Sarah, for you, I don't, in fairness, I don't know if you're vaccinated. For your age strata, I know that's probably just getting turned on as of midnight tonight, I think, or.
Yeah, I was more asking with a mind towards, the sort of understanding that in giving options for other people that we potentially take away options for other people, right? And just curious who would be required to be there that may not want to be there, in order that others, I don't have a worry for me. I volunteered during the polls when we did the election last year so that other people would have the option not to be there if they didn't want to. So that as we are providing options, we acknowledge and recognize that we may be limiting the options of others who are for. That's it. I'm good.
Yeah, I think the COVID circumstances is a conundrum. I know people who are vaccinated now and past the term of what is to be considered immunity and still aren't comfortable going into the public. So, yeah, so I think people in their own mind have to say, would I feel better doing this virtual, or can I sit in attendance physically? And that would be the same for the members. Any other hands up? All right, so I would move the motion to a vote based on the numbers that we've gone over a couple of times now. Dan Smith,
As long as we're clear and concise about 298 Norwich Wesley Road, yes.
I think we have a responsibility for that, Dan, and I'm as steadfast as you are in that.
I wanted a part of the record.
Okay. Paul Simon,
Yes.
Carolyn Howell,
Yes, as long as we're clear, again, to Dan Smith's point.
Ann Aiken,
Yes,
Mike Anderson,
Yes.
and myself, a yes. So we move the budget forward as presented with a vote of 6-0-0. And I thank you for that. It doesn't mean, I've never put forward that I think doing this should be a unanimous vote, but I think brings strength to what we have done moving it forward. So I appreciate your vote and understand the responsibilities to present all the facts that we've very strongly and robustly talked about over the last couple of months. Thank you very much, everybody, for that. You know, we're at a marker here, and I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. That would, again, I left the reports on there, thinking if somebody had a question, I'm happy to answer it. If best I can. And then we can go to policies. We've gone late last few meetings. I'm just giving everybody the option here. It's coming up on 9 o'clock. Sarah and parties have worked on the policy for budget reconciliation. Do you want to take a look at that? Do you want to move to previous minutes? You know, I'm giving some flexibility to the agenda here, just for sake of time. Any comments?
My feelings will not be hurt if folks don't want to talk about it.
Well said, Sarah.
Now that she said that, I am happy to move on to the next agenda item.
Agreed.
Let me echo Sarah's comments. My feelings won't be hurt if you want to pass over the meeting
Let's
minutes.
skip down 2 then.
I think we have a responsibility for the minutes, and it will go quickly if everyone's okay with that. You know, they really should be posted. So I think we have 2 sets of minutes, Anne.
Yes,
Okay. One would be dated March 10th and one would be dated March 17th. So why don't we look at March 10th, just in quick review, if you haven't done that already. On 4D, I think I understand the OOD, but I think it probably should be spelt out. And
okay.
everybody with us on that?
Yeah.
Any other amendments? Anybody? All right, I would move that we accept the minutes of the Board of Finance meeting dated March 10th, 2021 as amended. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dan Smith is the second. Any other discussion on that? All right, if we can, again, I'm going to have to poll you, Dan Smith, okay? Yay or nay?
Yes.
Paul,
Yay.
Carolyn,
Yay.
Ann,
Yay.
Mike?
Why am I always last? Yay.
No, I'm last. All right. They're approved and 600 as amended. And again, that was for March 10th, 21. All right. If we can look at the next set, please. Is this for March 17th? On number 4A, you went to spelling out who voted yes and who voted no. I don't know if that's needed. Somebody were abstaining, yes, but it doesn't have to be deleted, but it's different than what you've done in the past.
Well, because in reading more closely the handbook, it looks like that's what I'm supposed to do. If
Okay.
I'm misunderstanding that, I'm happy to go back to what I've been doing.
I don't think it hurts, to have it the way it is.
Okay.
The way I understood it, that the only name that had to be put in was anyone who abstained. So, but I'm not strong about deleting it. I'm fine with it as the way it is, but did notice the change. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
And you'll continue that going forward, Ann, is your thoughts?
I will.
Yeah,
I will.
the consistency, I think.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
It's 9 o'clock.
Thank you, Nita.
All right, I would move that we approve the Board of Finance meeting minutes dated March 17th, 2001, be approved as presented.
Second,
Okay, Dan Smith, thank you. And again, we'll just go through a poll. Dan Smith,
yay.
Paul,
Yay.
Carolyn,
Yay.
Ann Aiken,
Yay.
Mike Anderson,
Yep.
and myself, yes. So the minutes are approved as presented for the meeting dated March 17th, 2021, 600. Okay, and future strategies. We talked about the schedule earlier with the public hearing being dated April 19th. Are there any reports from Board of Finance members? Carolyn?
I've been meeting with the education subcommittee, so we've had 2 meetings so far. I'm the secretary now for that. We do have a tour scheduled of the school. I think they scheduled it for Friday the 9th to go through both buildings. If I'm not mistaken, I saw an email right before this meeting, so.
Okay, great.
been
Again, she's
looking at
talking about the
options.
Education Service Center, we're calling it, but 298,
Mhm.
correct? Yeah.
Yes, 298 Norwich Westerly Road in its entirety.
Ann, you had your hand up, Ann?
Oh,
Yes.
I just, from the FOI presentation Monday night, one of the parts of the presentation was on minutes. And one of the comments he made is that the minutes should be concise, but they should be detailed enough that anybody reading them can follow the train of thought that led up to decisions. And with that in mind, I'm going to go back to the somewhat more detailed minutes that I had been presenting. I'd cut them back to take out pretty much all of the discussions that we do on these topics to get them more concise for you, but I think I'm going to go back to putting some of that comment back in, because otherwise anybody reading them has no idea why we're doing what we're doing.
I think as the, thank you. I think as the minutes are presented, much to Ann's point, you should be reading them as if somebody from the public was taking a look at the minutes. And can they understand what the critical points, relevant points relative to the agenda are in the minutes. So, thank you. Not noted is town meeting for Nita or Mike, April 5th, Monday. And I think the invitation is out for that.
The invitation is out. We had a press release in the paper that wasn't a press release, but an article went in the paper, which was good. We've gotten it out there on a news blast. It's on the website. We'll create an event on Facebook here pretty soon so that we can attract as many people as possible to the town meeting. It is a hybrid meeting. So we will appreciate patience and hopefully some good attendance as we try to bring forward these 7 questions for consideration of the town. It'll be at 6 o'clock. And we are encouraging people to attend online that feel comfortable doing so. But there is in-person opportunity available for those who would prefer to be in person at the gymatorium at 6 o'clock. We'll start promptly at 6 Monday.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted you to mention the gymatorium simply because of the spacing issue. Yeah. Good, thank you.
And if I could speak for a second.
Sure, Nita.
Okay, I think it's going to be very important for anybody in the group here. I certainly want to be there to see how well this will work with the 2 things going on, the hybrid, basically, and how many people do choose to come to the location. I think it's just going to be very interesting to see the balance there. Just wanting everybody to think about this. It's a little bit complicated in this instance because there is going to be a vote. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Anita.
You're welcome.
All right, if there's nothing else under that agenda item, I'm sorry that I added the town meeting, but I didn't have that when I issued this, all of the data, but it had to be mentioned. It's that important. So with that, I would move to agenda item number 10, public comments.
Okay, Brian, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think you can hear me, right?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay.
Brian.
All right. All right. I just want to make sure I got this understanding right. It's a hearing to get public comment for the to give to the Board of Finance. There's not going to be any votes, so you guys can go back and deliberate and understand what's being said by the town, correct?
That is correct, Brian. Yes. Yep.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to say was, I know you got to present it roughly at the hearing. I would suggest, and it's just a suggestion, of course, that you would roughly have a mill rate for the people, because I know as a taxpayer, that's one of the biggest things that a taxpayer looks at is the mill rate, and especially where we had a revaluation this year. And the last thing I'd like to say is, I think Brett's comment on the decreases that some people got, maybe they ought to be looked at again. I'm not sure, but I think it probably wouldn't hurt, because I know the increases, a lot of people, myself included, had to appeal it, and it's, to be fair to everybody, I think that's the way to go, because like you say, it was just it was just a guy that come out, he measured the size of your building, he never saw the inside, if it was finished or not, and that has a lot to do with the revaluation of a property. And I thank you guys for all the hard work you're doing too. That's it.
Thank you, Brian. You know, relative to the issue, I mean, I will have a conversation with Daryl Del Grosso and just see what the magnitude of that relook would be. Next,
Joe
Christine.
Gross, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I unmuted now.
You are, go ahead.
Okay, guys. Brian, I want to thank you for being easy on the board tonight. I'm going to be at that hearing, and please listen, you're going to get exactly what you heard from me tonight. I got a selectman I want to pay $50,000 to who goes and meets with a congressman, making about 150,000. Does that sound right? 50,000 talking to somebody making 150. I want to have a first selectman there who's knowledgeable, goes out, does stuff and that. You're not going to get him for that reduced you did. So we're going to put the money back in. The other thing I have to do is I did ask a question, but we can't do it now. The taxes went up, but when they come back April the 1st, I was supposed to get an updated list from the tax collector. People who refuse to pay, dated back to 2008, 2016, and they appear in this year's tax list too. Refuse to pay. I'm not talking to everybody else that's with the attorney or different things like that. Just those who say, I'm not going to pay the taxes. I want the Board of Finance to publish that list of names. We did it one year and boy, we got some recognition from it. If you could sit there and listen to the same people since 2016 and a good percentage since 2008, I'm not going to pay taxes. I'm asking you, you will publish it. We got to do it. It should be done. Another Board of this time budget. See, you got me. Here's my other question. We've hit the Board of Selectmen's budget. We've into the 4th hearing. I see I got published with me now. I must have missed something, but how many times have we sat with the Board of Ed? I think we asked them maybe, I don't think we did. The first meeting, I think, was the only time I heard from them. And I supported that budget, but I don't recall you guys at all going into that. I've been through the handbook. I've been through state statutes. I've been through everything. I can't find anywhere where the Board of Finance has the authority to go into the Board of Selectmen and Board of Ed's budget by line items, and they add or take money away. I don't believe you have that authority. What you've done with the Board of Selectmen, I don't think is correct. I can't find where you have that anywhere. You can offer them suggestions and things of that nature like that, but to go directly into their budget by line item and take money out or put money in, I can't find where that authority is there. And I'm going to ask that at the town meeting too. See, I believe this is now a Board of Finance budget, not a Board of Selectmen's budget. I believe the public there is going to be ignorant. Don't take me wrong. You listen to all these hearings you have, you got about a half a dozen people in that there in the group here that's listening to what's going on. Nobody else knows what the heck is going on. When they come into that meeting, I'll guarantee you they're going to be asking you the same questions that you asked the first week you started going over this budget. Think about it. I'm serious, and I think you've got to agree with that thing on there. What we did tonight is we took 2 items out. When I heard the first selectman, I heard him mention 2 items, but he also said that is not a recommendation. He has not talked to the other 2 Board of Selectmen. I think it should not be touched by the Board of Finance until he has the ability to talk to the other 2 selectmen and let them decide what they want to do. In other words, you went in and deleted some monies and lines in here based on his general discussion. I don't know, that was over $120,000. The firefighters, no. I don't think that thing that's coming in is going to allow us to put any salaries in there. Last year, you guys said take away one, we will put the other one in next year. Paul Simons, you're the one who said it. You would put that in the budget this year for the second paid premium firefighter. I believe you've got that responsibility to put that firefighter in there and get that thing budgeted. Because even after if they do go in with this other thing, 3 years from now, what are they gonna do? You're gonna be back, do I continue on with this here firefighter or not? I believe at that time, it'll be a little bit more than 50,000. Ann and Brett, I thank you. I thank you for making the comments that you have looked into the handbook. I think that handbook is very important to you and you will find it there. But I thank you too for mentioning the handbook tonight. And I think you guys have done a lot of work, but if you ask me right now, I won't support this budget as it's going down. I still want to know how we're going to get that 32 mills down into the 29. In other words, I think Mike Anderson has much better handle on that than I do because he knows what figures you're working with. But guys, we got to get that in there somehow and without hurting the other people. But think about it. And then my closing remark, just ask me if I'm true or not. Whenever I make a suggestion or recommendation, I get the feeling that as soon as you say, thank you for your comment, that's the end of it. I don't get any support and no further discussion. I would hope that that isn't true, but that's the feeling that I get. I make a suggestion, I get thanked, and done. But hey, guys, you got a heck of a lot of work to do ahead of you. I'm here to help you any way I can, but I'm just bringing the items out as I see them. Thank you guys for letting me talk. Oh, the undesignated fund. I wish I could show you your policy on it. You've done everything you shouldn't be doing. Maintain adequate reserves to support at a minimum 1 month's expenditures. 1 month's expenditures. You can't do anything in it until you get the adoption of the annual budget too. So gentlemen, read that part too. And what you've done tonight, you can't do that stuff in there. Thank you guys, thank Dan. And thank God for you not going into a 4.5-hour marathon. You got it done. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Joe, what I'm going to say next, please don't take to be, being cheeky. I do appreciate your input, as I say, every time that you make a contribution. You've had a long legacy of contributing to this town, which, certainly is recognized by many, to include myself.
Dan, I ask the only thing I say, if I'm wrong, please tell me. I know the only guy that's told me so far is Mike Anderson. And I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Tell me if I'm wrong. That's what makes me better. If I'm not right, tell me. I appreciate it. But I'm here to help. And that's it. You guys go on with your stuff. You got enough problems than me.
All right, Joe, thank you. Good evening. Anyone else, Christine?
No.
Nita, did you want to speak?
Nope, all set.
Christine, can I chime in here for 1 second?
Yes, Pam.
I'm sorry, and I'll be quick. I just have to say, Joe, I do listen to what you say, and actually there was a lot of truth to a lot of what you said tonight. So I really do appreciate your comments. But I just wanted to I guess, shed some light on the whole supplanting comment that was made. I don't know how many Board of Finance members have experience with federal grants. I have considerable experience with that, and I would just be really cautious to remove anything from a general line item that are anticipated expenses, such as the 298. So Dan Smith, to your comment about, or your suggestion that we remove that, I think that Brett's suggestion that we leave something in there would be wise. Dan, I would just say you might want to get some advice on this. If you don't have experience with that, they will look at things like, the COVID grants, similar to the ERA funds. I don't know who remembers those, but that was the Americans Recovery Act funds. And there was a considerable amount of auditing done on those funds. And what you can do is certainly budget for anticipated expenses, short of what you think are going to be long-term expenses. So we know that there are going to be expenses for 298, for example. I would put something in that line item to show that we're anticipating that. But what I would not do is remove that entirely, because that's going to be open to question. So an easy way to think of that is like supplanting versus supplementing. So if you're going to supplement a program, that's completely legal and will not be questioned. But if you supplant something, it means that you're removing an anticipated expense that you would normally have to budget for. So I would just caution, I guess, the Board of Finance to really look into that, and maybe Dan just get some advice on that.
Sure, I'd be happy.
And I just don't want you to run into any issues later on where people are questioning what you've done and kind of why, especially that this is all recorded. So we've kind of had a significant amount of conversation around what we anticipate those expenses to be. We don't anticipate them to be zero. So just keep that in mind.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep,
So
thank
Dan,
you.
so
We'll
Dan,
look at that. Dan Smith?
yeah, just to put it your way, Dan, maybe we need to find out, can we partially fund stuff and then still get reimbursed? Is it all or nothing on that line item?
Yeah, I think we're kind of blending what Pam said, and I'm
Yeah.
sympathetic to what Pam had to say, because Board of Ed, for instance, are dealing with federal monies, and misappropriation of those, I mean, it can lead to very serious consequences. So, I mean, this is not something.
Of course, we want to avoid that, and it's just we don't have that much guidance, so it's right now it's easier to remove it, go to the hearing, explain it, and then go back and then revisit it.
Sure. No, I would agree with that. We'll try to
And-
determine that data.
I'm sorry, Dan. And Dan Smith, that's exactly my point. Just
Yeah.
when you get the feedback, just please, when you come back, just remember and make sure that, homework is done to know what exactly you can do and just what kind of risk you're putting the town in making decisions to completely remove things. And I don't say this to be a Monday morning quarterback. I'm saying this like honestly to be really helpful and avoid any issues.
Of course, no problem.
Thank you again, Pam. Yeah, and then we'll do that, Dan Smith. So, Carolyn?
I just wanted to thank Pam because that speaks to my point about waiting to hear what the Treasury Department says we can and cannot use the funds for. And then you would know, how to proceed rather than doing what we're doing. But nevertheless, it'll be good to have it move forward to the public to hear what they have to say regardless.
Yeah, to Carolyn's point, Mike, I mean, has any guidance been given as to more specificity on those assets, when the timing might be?
Oh, we're going to know something. Supposedly, we're supposed to have the ability to even have the funds 90 days from when President Biden signed the bill. So it won't be a terribly long amount of time. It's supposed to be 60 days from when he signed it that the state gets the money, and then they have 30 days to get it to us. And of course, Treasury will have come out with their guidance at that time. I would just say, with regards to this decision that was made to take the monies out, the argument can be made and very clearly be made that a lot of the reason that we unexpectedly had to have expenses in this building had to do with the fact that the school, is actually using it for students right now. So, I don't think that there's, I think that a lot of this some of it was unexpected. And certainly we could anticipate that, yes, there are going to be expenses. However, we also could anticipate that we're going to have this leased out and that somebody else is going to be picking up the tab for it. So I think there's a lot of unknowns, and I agree 100% with what everyone said, that we need to articulate all of these things like we do every year at every one of the hearings of the town meetings with what we know to the people, so that it's completely transparent and they can follow the thinking as to how we've moved along. But certainly we want to get as much information as possible as it becomes available. And as it does, you'll be the first to know.
Thank you, Mike.
We have a hand up from Joe Gross again.
Joe, you're recognized. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just did. I'm sorry, guys. I hit a button on this thing and I went off and I tried to get back. Who was talking before there? Was that Pam Palmieri?
Pam Patamri, yes.
Okay, I'll give her a call. I gotta talk to her anyway.
Okay.
I just want one more quick thing. Everybody's talking nice. I have not forgotten that I have voted as a taxpayer, that proposal for that school, $1 million, the demo. That will never leave my mind, guys. You do what you want. $1 million in that budget, the demo. I know what happened. I did talk to Pam on it and she's very, very good in explaining things, but don't forget I did that. That's all. Thank you. I'm sorry. I just hit the wrong button on this damn thing.
All right, thanks, Joe.
And listen though.
You said that was it.
Did you hear that? I just patted myself on the shoulder. Thanks, guys.
Good night, Joe.
Good night, guys.
Is that it on public, Christine?
It looks to be.
All right. I am thrilled to put forward a motion of adjournment.
Second.
Dan Smith is the second.
Come on, Dan Smith, more emotion. Be thrilled.
Jump forward to the screen. Whoa.
That's right.
I'm assuming that we're 600 on that. Okay.
You can.
And the time is 9:24. And just recall, we have a town meeting, a public hearing. Okay, so thank you, everybody. And as I said last meeting, you know, I know sometimes it just feels like it's wringing the towel and where do we go? But, you know, as we deliberate, we have to bring solutions forward, not just kind of mull in the circumstance. What are the solutions? Then have an ear to the ground as to what could be amended to make for a better outcome. So,
Definitely, we need to get some more answers on that line item for 298.
yep. I will begin that discussion tomorrow. And see
Thank you
where-
for getting us through it, Mr. Chairman.
Say again?
I said, thank you for getting us through it. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good group of people. For everyone, thanks for your contribution. And even if it seems like a little bit of a jibe here and there, it ultimately takes shape. So here we go. Thank you very much, and we'll move this forward. Have a good Easter weekend, everybody.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.